Imagine possessing the world in the palm of your hand. Imagine owning the very airlines that shrunk the globe, the movie studios that defined the golden age of Hollywood, and a fortune so vast it could manipulate the halls of power in Washington. Now, contrast that image with a different one. A man trapped in a pitch-black hotel suite, the windows sealed with layers of duct tape to keep out the impurity of the outside world. A man weighing barely 90 pounds. This isn't a psychological thriller from the mind of Alfred Hitchcock. This is the documented reality of Howard Robard Hughes Jr. At his zenith, Hughes was the ultimate American icon. He was the aviator who broke world records, the tycoon who bought Las Vegas on a whim, and the billionaire who lived as the world's most famous ghost. But while his bank account swelled into the billions, his mind was being dismantled by a silent, invisible enemy. Today, we delve into the classified archives of a life lost to madness. This is a corporate and psychological autopsy of Howard Hughes, a man who spent a lifetime building an empire, only to use it as a fortress to hide from his own humanity. Why did the man who could buy anything choose to die with nothing? To understand the tragedy, we must first understand the staggering scale of his power. Howard didn't start from zero, but he multiplied his inheritance with a ruthless, almost robotic efficiency. His father had invented the sharp Hughes rock bit, a tool so essential to the oil industry that every time a drill touched the earth anywhere on the planet, the Hughes family got paid. When his parents died before he turned 19, Howard did something unheard of for a teenager in 1924. He bypassed the courts, took full control of the company, and moved to Los Angeles. He didn't want to just be a businessman, he wanted to be a god of the new age. He entered Hollywood not as a guest, but as a conqueror. In 1930, he produced Hell's Angels. It was a production of absolute madness. He amassed the largest private air force in the world just to film the dogfights. When directors told him a shot was impossible, he fired them and directed it himself. He spent $4 million, an astronomical sum during the Great Depression, to finish the film. It was the first glimpse of his all-or-nothing personality. But it was in the cockpit of a plane where Hughes felt most alive. He wasn't a billionaire playing at being a pilot, he was a world-class aviator. In 1938, he flew around the world in just 91 hours, shattering the previous record. Upon his return, New York gave him a ticker tape parade. He was the most eligible bachelor on Earth, seen with icons like Katharine Hepburn and Bette Davis. But even then, beneath the leather flight jacket and the tuxedo, the cracks were forming. Hughes was already washing his hands dozens of times a day, convinced that the world was dirty. The turning point in the life of Howard Hughes can be traced to a single, violent afternoon in July 1946. Hughes was test piloting the XF-11, a reconnaissance plane he designed for the US Army. Over Beverly Hills, a technical failure sent the plane screaming into a residential neighborhood. The crash was a fireball of twisted metal. Hughes was pulled from the wreckage by a bystander just seconds before the fuel tanks exploded. His injuries were horrific: a crushed chest, a collapsed lung, third-degree burns, and a broken back. Doctors didn't think he would survive the night. But Howard Hughes was as stubborn as he was wealthy. During his recovery, he grew frustrated with the hospital beds, so he designed a motorized bed with 30 different sections to adjust his position, the precursor to the modern hospital bed. However, the physical recovery hid a darker development. To manage the excruciating pain, his doctors administered heavy doses of morphine and codeine. For the rest of his life, Hughes would never be sober. His brilliant mind, already struggling with obsessive-compulsive disorder, was now clouded by a permanent fog of opioids. As the 1950s began, Hughes' behavior shifted from eccentric to pathological. He bought RKO pictures, but rarely visited the studio. Instead, he would lock himself in a screening room for months at a time, eating only chocolate bars and chicken, surrounded by empty milk bottles. He was no longer running a business, he was running away from reality. In 1966, the world's most famous recluse made his most famous move. He arrived at the Desert Inn in Las Vegas by train, in the middle of the night, on a stretcher to avoid being seen. He took over the entire top floor when the hotel management, unaware of who their guest really was, tried to evict him to make room for high rollers. Hughes gave his typical response. He bought the hotel for $13 million. He didn't stop there. He bought the Sands, the Frontier, the Castaways, and the Silver Slipper. He bought a local TV station, KLS, because he wanted to watch movies at 3:00 a.m. If he called the station and told them to replay a scene, they did it. He had turned Las Vegas into his private kingdom, yet he never left his room. It was during these years that the Mormon Mafia, a group of loyal assistants chosen for their perceived lack of vices, became his only contact with the outside world. The rules were insane. If they brought him a document, they had to use layers of Kleenex to touch it. Hughes would spend hours processing a simple door handle before touching it. His physical appearance during the Vegas years became a subject of legend. His hair reached halfway down his back. His fingernails were yellow, curling talons. He had become a prisoner of his own wealth. He spent his days naked in a darkened room, watching films like Ice Station Zebra on a loop, reportedly watching it over 150 times. He was a man who owned the sky, but lived in a shoebox. By the early 1970s, Hughes began a nomadic journey of shadows. He fled Las Vegas for the Bahamas, then London, then Nicaragua, and finally Acapulco. He was fleeing the IRS, he was fleeing subpoenas, but mostly, he was fleeing the microorganisms he believed were crawling over everything. His medical state was a disaster. He had stopped eating almost entirely. His 6'4" frame was skeletal. He refused all medical help that involved touching his skin. He had developed a horrific habit of storing his own urine in jars, lined up in the corners of his expensive suites. The richest man in the world was living in a state of squalor that would be considered a crime if he were a poor man. His internal memos to his staff from this period are heartbreaking. He wrote about his painless teeth falling out and his inability to stand up. Yet, he was still making multi-million-dollar decisions, still influencing the Nixon administration, and still controlling a global workforce of thousands. In April 1976, while at the Fairmont Hotel in Acapulco, Hughes finally slipped into a semi-comatose state. His kidney failure was terminal. His staff, terrified of his long-standing orders never to let doctors near him, waited too long to act. By the time they loaded his frail body onto a private jet headed for Houston, it was over. Howard Hughes died at 3,000 feet, above the clouds, in the only place he ever felt free. When the plane landed, the authorities were presented with a body they couldn't identify. The man on the stretcher looked like a vagrant from the streets, not a billionaire. The FBI had to be called in to take fingerprints from the corpse to prove it was actually Howard Hughes. The autopsy report was a grim reading of a life wasted by fear. His body was found with broken hypodermic needles embedded in his arms, remnants of his decades-long addiction. He weighed only 90 pounds. The tragedy of Howard Hughes is a haunting cautionary tale for the modern age. We live in a world obsessed with the accumulation of wealth and the pursuit of digital isolation. Hughes had it all, the looks, the talent, the money, and he used it all to build a wall between himself and the rest of the world. He died surrounded by billions, yet without a single person who truly knew him. He owned the most advanced technology of the 20th century, yet he couldn't fix a broken mind. Howard Hughes didn't lose his fortune. He lost his soul to a world he was too afraid to touch. In the end, the richest man in the world reminds us that without connection, without light, and without the courage to be vulnerable, we are all just ghosts in our own machines.